Meet Cortez. On paper, his life looks solid. He earns a good salary, nothing extravagant, but enough to live comfortably. Yet month after month, his bank account stays nearly empty. He wonders how this happens. How can someone with steady income still feel broke? The answer isn't complicated. Cortez has never learned to say no to spending. He buys without thinking. He upgrades constantly. He fills his life with things he doesn't need. And if you're watching this, you might recognize yourself in his story. If you do, I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel, because what Cortez learns next changed everything about how he relates to money. There are 10 minimalist money rules that transformed his finances, and they can transform yours too. Let's walk through them together. The first rule is this: calculate the cost per use before you buy anything. Cortez didn't understand this at first. He'd see something in a store and think, it's only $30. $30 felt cheap. But $30 spent on something you use once is incredibly expensive. $30 spent on something you use 500 times is almost nothing. The math is simple, but the mindset shift is profound. Cortez bought an expensive coffee maker. He convinced himself it was an investment in his mornings. He'd use it every single day, he thought. But here's what actually happened. He used it twice. Then it sat on his counter gathering dust. That coffee maker cost him $15 per use, and he only used it twice. Imagine if he'd done the math first. He would have realized that buying a $7 French press, something he'd actually use regularly, was far smarter. Cost per use changes everything. When Cortez started calculating it, his spending habits shifted overnight. He'd hold an item, calculate how many times he'd really use it, and 9 times out of 10, he'd put it back on the shelf. This single rule saved him hundreds of dollars every month. The second rule is the replacement test. This rule stops impulse upgrades dead in their tracks. Before you buy something new, ask yourself this: would I replace this item if I lost it today? If the answer is no, you don't actually need it. Cortez used to buy the latest tech constantly: new headphones, a new watch, a new camera. He told himself each purchase was necessary. But when he applied the replacement test, reality hit hard. He realized he wouldn't replace most of these things. He had perfectly good headphones already. His old watch worked fine. He didn't actually use that camera. These weren't replacements. They were upgrades driven by desire, not need. Once he understood this distinction, his life got simpler. He stopped buying things to replace things he already had. He kept what worked. He fixed what broke instead of replacing it. This rule alone eliminated probably 70% of his unnecessary purchases. The replacement test is brutally honest. It cuts through all the justifications we tell ourselves. The third rule is adding friction to spending. Cortez had his credit card linked to everything. One click, and money was gone. He'd buy without thinking because there was no friction between desire and purchase. So he changed this. He removed his credit card from his phone. He deleted his saved payment methods from online stores. He made it so that every purchase required him to actually think about it. He had to get his wallet. He had to type in his card information. He had to confirm the purchase multiple times. This friction worked. When buying required effort, he bought less. A lot less. Friction is your friend when it comes to spending. The easier you make it to buy, the more you buy. The harder you make it, the more intentional your purchases become. Cortez now keeps cash on hand for everyday expenses. He pays for big purchases with a bank transfer that takes 3 business days to process. By the time the money leaves his account, he's had days to reconsider. Most of the time, he cancels. This rule is so simple, yet so effective. The fourth rule is tracking every single expense. Cortez thought he knew where his money went. He didn't. Not really. So he started tracking everything. Every coffee, every lunch, every subscription he forgot he had. The tracking itself became eye-opening. He discovered he was spending $60 a month on apps he never used, $40 on a gym membership he visited once, $30 on streaming services he didn't watch. These small expenses added up to hundreds of dollars monthly, and he hadn't even noticed. Tracking forces awareness. When you see exactly where your money goes, you can't pretend anymore. You can't tell yourself you're being responsible while spending unconsciously. Cortez uses a simple spreadsheet. He writes down every expense immediately after making it. At the end of each month, he reviews where his money actually went versus where he thought it went. The gap is always shocking. Tracking is tedious, but it's also transformative. You can't change what you don't measure. The fifth rule is the 30-day rule for non-essentials. Cortez used to make impulse purchases all the time. He'd see something, want it immediately, and buy it that day. Then he'd get home and wonder why he bought it. So he implemented a rule. If he wants to buy something that's not essential, he waits 30 days. He puts it on a list. He thinks about it for a month. If he still wants it after 30 days, he buys it. If he's forgotten about it, well, that's proof he didn't really need it. The 30-day rule is remarkably effective. Most of Cortez's impulses fade within a week. By day 30, he's usually moved on to something else entirely. This rule has saved him from countless regrettable purchases. It's also taught him the difference between wanting something and needing something. Want fades. Need doesn't. The sixth rule is embracing secondhand and refurbished items. Cortez used to think secondhand was cheap and cheap meant bad. He was wrong. A used item from someone who took care of it is often better quality than a new item made to break. He started buying secondhand furniture, books, clothes, and electronics. He saved enormous amounts of money while getting better quality products. A secondhand leather jacket from a quality brand cost him $50. A new synthetic jacket from a mass market store would have cost $60 and fallen apart in a year. The secondhand jacket was already 10 years old and had another decade ahead of it. Secondhand shopping also aligned with his minimalist values. He wasn't contributing to unnecessary consumption. He was giving items a second life instead of creating demand for new production. This rule combined financial wisdom with environmental responsibility. Cortez found that shopping secondhand actually made him happier. He spent less time in stores and more time thinking carefully about each purchase. The seventh rule is automating your savings before you spend. Cortez used to save whatever was left at the end of the month. Usually, nothing was left. So he flipped the script. He set up an automatic transfer on payday that moved money to a separate savings account before he even saw it. Out of sight, out of mind. He couldn't spend money he didn't see. This simple automation changed his entire financial trajectory. Within 6 months, he had an emergency fund. Within a year, he had a small cushion. The money he didn't see, he didn't miss. This rule works because it removes willpower from the equation. You don't have to decide to save. The decision is already made. The money goes automatically. Cortez recommends starting small, even $5 per paycheck, and increasing it gradually. The amount matters less than the habit. Once you build the habit, you can increase it endlessly. The eighth rule is questioning every subscription. Modern life is subscriptions all the way down. Streaming services, apps, memberships, software licenses, they're each small, so they feel harmless, but they add up to hundreds or thousands of dollars per year. Cortez did an audit. He found subscriptions he'd forgotten he had, some he hadn't used in years. He canceled all but the ones he used weekly. His life barely changed, but his monthly expenses dropped by over $100. He now does a subscription audit every 3 months. He asks himself if he's actually using each one. If not, it's gone. He's also stopped accepting free trial offers. Free trials are subscription traps. They convert you into paying customers without your active decision. Cortez treats every subscription like a purchase, because it is. He asks whether he'd pay for it today if he had to decide right now. If the answer is no, he cancels it. The ninth rule is understanding the difference between price and value. Cortez used to think cheap was good and expensive was bad. But a cheap thing that falls apart quickly costs more than an expensive thing that lasts. Value isn't about the lowest price, it's about getting what you pay for. He invested in good basics. Quality sheets, a comfortable chair, a durable coat. These items cost more upfront, but lasted years. He stopped buying cheap things that broke constantly and needed replacing. Over time, he spent less money, not more. He owned fewer items of higher quality. His space felt calmer. His life felt more stable. Price is what you pay. Value is what you get. Understanding this distinction transformed how Cortez shops. He buys less, but better. The 10th and final rule is this: treat your money like you treat your possessions. Cortez owns very little. Everything he owns, he chose carefully. He uses it regularly. He maintains it. He respects it. He started treating his money the same way. Every dollar is respected. Every expense is considered. Money flows out slowly and only toward things that matter. This mindset is the foundation that all 9 previous rules rest on. Without it, the rules feel like restrictions. With it, they feel like freedom. Cortez used to feel trapped by his spending. Money controlled him. Now he controls his money. He spends consciously. He saves automatically. He owns less, but appreciates more. His salary hasn't changed, but his life has transformed completely. These 10 rules sound simple when you hear them listed out like this, but implementing them requires patience and practice. Start with one rule, master it, then add another. The cumulative effect is powerful. Cortez went from broke to stable to actually building wealth, all without earning more money. He just stopped wasting it. If you found value in these rules, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button. It helps me know this is reaching people who need it. And if you're curious about which of these rules would transform your finances the most, or if you've already tried some of these and they've worked for you, please drop a comment below. I read every single one, and I'd love to hear your story. Subscribe to this channel if you want more practical wisdom about building a stable financial life without the complicated jargon.